Okay, we are going to call the meeting to order with an opening prayer, and Ben Crawford has agreed to lead us in prayer.
Thank you, David. Dear Heavenly Father, we ask you today to be with us and lead us and guide us as we go through the election season. We thank you, Lord, for the wonderful country that we live in and the ability to elect our officials. Please lead them and guide them, keep them safe, give them the energy and the charisma to make the right decisions. Thank you for the wonderful food that you've given us. Bless all of us in our travels. We ask these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. It is traditional for us to have the flag salute led by the oldest veteran present. I think Alan went out to get seconds. So, do we have a veteran here that is older than 70? Huh? We got one?
Yeah.
All right. Here's Alan's return. Are you ready to lead us in the flag salute, Alan?
This is yours.
You're not old enough? All right. How old are you?
78.
You're
What
78?
kind of drink for you?
He's got you beat. All right. Good. Thank you. Can you tell us what branch of the service you served in?
Air Force, 21 years,
What years did you serve?
from 61 to 82.
From when?
1961 to 1982.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, would you lead us in a flag salute, please?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and unborn. Thank you very much. Okay, so you go ahead and sit down now, and we always sing a patriotic song. Today we're going to do God Bless America. I see the new people looking at me. Yeah, I don't do a solo very well, so I want you all to join with me. God
Bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Minutes are easy. Debbie Baker can't be here tonight. She has two jobs. She was here last time, but she doesn't do the minutes anymore because the minutes are on video. And Brian is here doing it again for us. Thank you, Brian, for being here. And thank you for doing the great job of putting them up all these times. You're doing a great job. The treasurer is Troy Newman. He actually hardly ever shows up at these local meetings in Wichita, but he showed up at the national meeting last month in Overland Park, Kansas. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that later in the agenda. But anyway, we do have a treasurer's report approved by him, and it's printed on the back. Has everyone had a chance to look at the treasurer's report? We ended up with a total of $964.50 is the bottom line. I will entertain a motion to accept that treasurer's report as printed, if someone would do that. All right, Gerald is making the motion to accept the treasurer's report as printed. Do I have a second to that motion? Al Alliston is making a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we can get right into the introduction of our candidates. We have two different positions in Sedgwick County that has a vacancy and therefore a primary. And in Division 7, Roger Woods was not able to make it tonight, and he sent a letter, and I want to make sure that everybody got his letter. If you didn't get the letter, let me know and we'll get one to you. So Roger Woods can't be here, but but his opponent, Jon Von Achen, is here. And so, John, you're here without an opponent tonight, just so you know that. John here in the red tie and the blue jacket. And the other three here are all running in Division 17. And that is, at the end, we have Scott Anderson. And then the beautiful one is Linda Kirby.
Thank you.
And then we have Richard Paugh. Am I saying that right?
Paugh, yeah, very good, thank you,
All
Mark.
right, all right. Mon Paugh.
That's right, exactly. Just like Ma and Pa.
There you go, okay. All right, so thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking time out of your campaign schedule to do this. You are being videotaped. You'll be able to put that link on your Facebook page and use it any way you want to. So we are going to start with Division 7. And John, you will have 4 minutes to do your introduction. And the way we'll do this is we'll do John first, then we'll do Scott, then Linda, then Richard. And then when we start taking questions, we'll vary who's going to go first and who's going to go second, because it makes a lot of difference. I've run for office too, and you never know what's going to come up from the floor. And it's so great if they ask a question you know absolutely nothing about. You know, while that other candidate is telling you something you're formulating in your mind, and you stand up and make it sound like, oh, I knew all about this. You know, you're just repeating what you heard. So somebody has to go first every time, and we'll share that burden among the group here. So, okay, so Lauren, would you be able to take time? Do you have a smartphone or anything with a clock? If you have a clock, Debbie Baker normally does that. I should have told you. I should have warned you about that. But so if you'll set that for 4 minutes and just get my attention, and then I will stand up. So I'm not going to holler at you. And when I stand up, it doesn't mean you have to cut your sentence off like at the Pachyderm or something like that, where they're going to, really pull you off the stage. Okay, in this forum, you can finish your thought, but don't go on for another minute or two.
You don't have a hook or anything?
Don't have a hook.
No,
Don't have a
okay,
shepherd's hook.
Okay, I was just checking.
John, Todd, and John Stephen have that up at the Pachyderm. If you run out of time, you better shut up.
I'll just wave my hand at you.
Okay, well, you just get my attention. You wave your hand at me if they see it, fine. Then when I stand up, then it's time to shut her down. So, okay, well, we're going to start with Jon Von Achen.
Rather than feel cramped, I'm going to step out in front of the table.
Yeah, well, just when he starts talking, 4 minutes.
When I start my song and dance. I should get 8 minutes. I got my opponents on here.
That's right. You can argue for it.
Hi, my name is Jon Von Achen. I'm running for Division 7. Division 7 is the only race where it's a Democrat filed, so whoever wins the primary on the Republican side is going to face an opponent in the general election. I was born and raised here in Wichita, grew up in South Wichita, went to Wichita South. Then from there I went to Wichita State. Then I decided it was time for me to get away for a while. So I went to law school in St. Louis and decided my second year that I really wanted to come home, that I had done the thing where I'd gone away from home, but this community is where I grew up, and this community is where I wanted to go back. So I finished law school, passed the bar here in Kansas, and then started the journey of over 17 years of representing people, representing municipalities, representing business entities here in South Central Kansas. Worked for the state of Kansas for a while, then went to a small firm in Winfield for 6 years, and then moved my practice to Wichita in 2010. During that time, I have practiced in civil court, juvenile court, criminal court, civil court, probate court, traffic court, in multiple counties here in Kansas, including here in Central. I've represented indigent people on the criminal side, all the way up to litigating multi-million-dollar estates and trusts on the civil and probate side. Also the only candidate in either race that has served as a municipal judge. So I have sat at the front of the room, I have made decisions, I have conducted court, and when I conducted court, I treated it as if I was, sitting at a higher level, if I was sitting at the district court level. I mean, really the only difference between my courtroom and theirs was we had card table and chairs as opposed to having, a big bench and a jury box and those things. But the principles are still the same. You let people be heard. They come in when you conduct a trial, you give them an opportunity to be heard, follow the rules of evidence, correct them when it needs to be corrected. And then you render a decision. And the way I always believe is you render a decision fully. In other words, you explain to the parties in front of you why you made your decision, not just what decision you made. Because they're going to walk out of that courtroom and somebody's going to be happy, somebody's going to be unhappy, sometimes they're both going to be happy. But if you explain to them the decision, at least they understand why you came to the conclusion. They may disagree with you, but at least they understand why you came to that conclusion. So, I think that's an important thing to point out. One of the things that I find that for me is important are children. I've represented children for most of my career. I started off doing child support work for the state, so your primary goal is to make sure the kids are supported. I moved from that into juvenile work, where I represented both children and parents in child and care cases and children in juvenile offender cases. I've advocated for children my entire career, and I'm concerned with what's happening in this community, where we have children that are being left out, children that are not being taken care of, and unfortunately children dying because of the way the system is. From the judge side, what we can do is make sure that people are held accountable, that when they come into juvenile court, that they make sure that the children are represented, that social workers do their job, and that the child comes first. And that's, to me, the most important thing, whether it be in juvenile court or family court. If it involves a child, the child comes first, and the adults are second. Because the adults are adults and they can deal with themselves. The children, they don't, unless they have somebody advocating for them properly, they can't.
Yeah, that works pretty good.
So I would appreciate your vote on August 7th. Thank you very much.
Oh, absolutely. I forgot to announce that if you want to get seconds and everything like that, feel free to get up and go right on out. Don't be so polite that you don't get to eat while you're here. Eating is why we're here at the Golden Corral. So feel free to move in and out. And then also if you need drinks or anything like that, just feel free to continue on. So, okay, are we ready? Ready to go here? And what did you need something else?
Okay,
No, we're good. Okay. Take it away.
Alrighty, well,
Scott Anderson.
eventually I'll move to the middle here, but my name is Scott Anderson. I guess this is my second time getting to come talk to you guys about the judicial race. I am running for Division 17, so John and I are not opponents, but the rest of us up here are opponents. I was born and raised here in Wichita. Graduated from high school at Wichita Northwest High School back in 2000 and immediately went into the military. I was in the U.S. Army from 2000 to 2005. I was stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington, which is a beautiful state. Politics are a little wonky, but at least it's a pretty state. But I was up there for 5 years, minus the 1 year that I went to Iraq. I was in Iraq from 2003 to 2004. While I was in the military, I was a military intelligence analyst. So those of you who might be prior Army or prior military know that as the S2 branch. Did a lot of process and security clearances, but when I was actually overseas and in deployment, part of my job was lots of research, looking at enemy tactics, analyzing those tactics, and advising commanders of what the likely course of action the enemy is going to take. So I did that. While I was in Iraq, I actually applied to college because I realized real quick that the Dust Bowl was not for me. As much as it might be for some people. Military wasn't for me, so I came back to Kansas, went to the University of Kansas for a year. I went through 4 different majors. I started off as a pre-law major, found out that that's really not a major. All it is a designation that allows you to take whatever class you want to take. After that, I changed over to computer science. Found out I'm not good at calculus at all. Came down to Wichita. I went to Wichita State for a bit, which is where I met my wife. While I was here at Wichita State, I continued to be a computer science major. While I was in Iraq, I taught myself computer programming, so I thought that's what I wanted to do. But come to find out, again, I was told twice, not good at math, so this is probably not the route for you. I also tried drilling holes when I worked at Cessna, so for a couple months. Found out that drilling holes was a lot harder than I gave it credit for. So ultimately, my wife decided that she wanted to continue on with her English studies, but she wanted to do it up at the University of Kansas. Went back up to KU. I completed my undergraduate degree. Did a stop in psychology for a while, and then ultimately ended up going into communications. Really enjoyed the rhetoric in the communications department, and as a byproduct of that, I started doing political communications. So through that, I worked on Tom Sloan's campaign back in 2008. Tom Sloan is probably the only Republican up in the Lawrence area, but I was in a couple of his commercials and walked for him. I walked for the Kansas Traditional Republican Majority. I knocked on doors for them, and the political bug really bit me. So I came back here after I completed law school and decided to be a prosecutor, because that's what I've been told all along that you have to do. So you can go into politics, but you got to be a prosecutor. So I prosecuted for the city of Wichita for about a year and a half, exclusively prosecuted DUIs. Because of the expertise I developed in my DUI prosecution, I was asked to go work for the Public Defender's Office. At the Public Defender's Office, I started off prosecuting DUIs. I quickly moved, or defending DUIs. I quickly moved into defending involuntary manslaughters and all sorts of other things. Biggest question that's going to be tonight, I think, is going to be my experience. Obviously, if you can do math better than I can, you know that graduating in 2000 doesn't make me very old, doesn't make me a lawyer for very long. More than happy to answer questions about that, but I would appreciate your vote at the end on August 7th.
Scott, Linda, it's your turn now.
I am very pleased to be here. I am Linda Kirby. I'm running for District Court Judge in Division 17. The most important things you need to know about me is that I'm a Christian. I am pro-life. I love my country, my state, and I love my community. And I'm very concerned about the citizens in Sedgwick County. 65% of our cases that are filed in Sedgwick County are not criminal law cases. And those cases, each and every one, have a plaintiff and a defendant. So nearly 70,000 citizens in Sedgwick County go before the court. They are not criminals. They go before the court, and they are looking for the court to listen to their case. Close to 99% of our cases are not heard by a jury. The judge hears the case, is the trier of fact, and has to know the law to apply to that case, has to understand whether the attorneys who are employed to make the case for the client telling the complete story or not. The judge sitting in that case has to know the law. And you know what happens if there's a bad decision? Not much. People are usually not sophisticated enough to appeal, or there's not enough money to take an appeal. So it is absolutely critical that we have judges who understand the kind of law that our citizens are coming to the court with. I'm really very pleased to be sitting with these gentlemen, and I admire Scott for his career, actually. But he's right. People are told you need to be a prosecutor to get into politics in Sedgwick County. As it happens, 15 of our currently sitting judges, 15 out of 28, have extensive criminal law backgrounds before taking the bench. What happens when you have an extensive criminal law background is you did criminal law, a lot of it, You know it well. You will understand that. But we only had 73 criminal trials in the court last year. 73 criminal trials. The DA brings cases to the court. All of the criminal things that we see on television and read in the newspaper are being dealt with by the DA. Judges don't get to go out and pluck these cases up. They have to be brought to the court, and if you look at this card, these are statistics from our Sedgwick County Court. There are only 3,731 criminal cases brought. Very important cases, don't get me wrong. I think what law enforcement and the DA's office does is absolutely critical to the safety of our community, but judges can't do anything about it unless the DA brings it to us. These cases are largely pled or they are dismissed. We only had 73 jury trials last year in Sedgwick County. While we have so many criminal law experts, we have nearly 70,000 litigants who have come to the court expecting fairness, expecting justice, expecting that their rights be observed, or at least they understand why the decision is being made the way it's being made. Please think about me, August the 7th, vote for me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Now we have Richard Paugh.
Hi, everybody. I'm Richard Paugh. My opponents are going to be Linda and Scott. David Loudon from the DA's office, I guess, had more important things to do than me. I feel like I'm kind of at a disadvantage because I'm the only one from Division 17 that's not a KRA member that's here tonight. So I'm running at a disadvantage. Also, based on Mark's comments, I'm also not the most beautiful person sitting at the table. So that puts me at a double disadvantage.
It's hard on me too.
And you're not the youngest either.
No, and I'm not the youngest either, so I guess I've already got the 3 strikes. What do you need to know about me? Well, my name's Richard Paugh. I have grew up in Wichita, North High Grad, Wichita State. What differentiates me from my opponents, I guess, is the heart of the matter. What differentiates me is I practice in all 6 departments Linda's talked about the 74 jury trials last year. 2 of those were mine, so I've had jury trial experience. Today, I was actually in juvenile court and probate court. I do traffic, I've done civil trials. I probably have the most breadth of experience than anybody else that's running tonight. Everybody always asks you, why are you running for judge? Well, I think all my opponents would agree that, everybody talks about judicial temperament. How do you treat people? That's what it comes down to. Well, I've always thought I had that quality, but earlier this year, before the deadline to file, I was sitting down with an assistant district attorney. It wasn't David, but since he's not here, he can't defend himself, so I'll just talk. But I was sitting with this person, and we finished up a case together and resolved it, and I was asked, Richard, have you thought about running for judge? And I said, I've thought about it, but I'm kind of on the fence. This person told me, Richard, you should run. And I said, why? He said, I've seen how you deal with your opponents. I'm your opponent. I know how you deal with them. I know how you treat the court. More importantly, I've seen how you treat your clients with the respect that they deserve. Also, right after I announced my candidacy, I was over in federal court. I did federal defense work. And I was sitting with an assistant U.S. attorney, and we were sitting at the table waiting for court to start. And he looks over at me, he goes, Richard, are you running? I said, yeah. He goes, good. He goes, we worked on many cases together, and he goes, I think you would do a great job. So I might not be as specialized in one area as some of my opponents, but I'm the only one that practices in all of those departments. So whatever department, when I'm elected, I could go into that department, I would know the law and be able to hit the ground running. So I know that I always try to finish before the beeper comes off, because it's better to be quiet and let everybody think you're a fool than open your mouth and prove everybody right. So thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and please vote for me on August 7th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, much appreciated. He's given us 30 seconds extra time here, so we have 30 seconds more for questions. So if you do have a question, please make your question concise, and remember somebody's going to try to answer that. Try to avoid giving long opinions about yourself, but if you have to frame a question, go ahead and do so. So, Lauren already has a first hand up here. All right, I see two hands up. Lauren, I'm going to let you go first. Go ahead, ask your
I
question.
actually was going to ask, is it okay if we ask the same question of all of them?
And okay, that's a good point too. If you have a question specifically for one candidate, you can save time. If you don't really care or it's already been answered, I noticed one candidate mentioned that she's pro-life. Maybe we'll get questions for the other three or something. On that or whatever. So if you don't have to have it answered by all four, then we'll hopefully save some time there. And in answering the questions, if you guys could try to limit it to 2 minutes, we would like to do that. And don't use the 2 minutes if you don't need it, but you can use it.
I do have another question.
You have a question? Go ahead,
Like
Lauren.
I said, I'm in here, I don't know if this question is appropriate, I just know this is.
No, go ahead. Any question for a
Okay,
judge?
I know this is what's on my mind when it comes to what you guys do. So, would you say, when you're judging a case, are you more likely to look at laws and rules and this is how things are black and white, or are you more likely to dig into the circumstance and learn everything about that situation and inform it based on certain circumstances?
Is this in terms of incarceration?
Any case that you're working on, are you likely to dig into their circumstance and base your decision off of that? Or are you more likely to base your decision off of this is right, and this is wrong, this is that, and why?
Did everybody hear the question?
Here, well, make a motion or can you restate it?
Yeah, there's a lot of background noise.
Sorry, that was kind of rude, okay, but for you guys in the back, I was asking, are they more likely to base the decision based on rules are rules and things are black and white, this is the law, this is the rules, this is how it is, or are you going to base your decision on, okay, this person is in a circumstance, they have something going on, they've been unemployed for a week or something, they're single mom, they've got circumstances in their life that are contributing to whatever is going on. And I'm just asking, are they likely to base the decision based off circumstance or law or how that makes sense?
So can I shorten that question down to?
Because I know it's long.
How much weight, as a judge, would you put into extenuating circumstances of the person, not only in incarceration cases, but certainly in prison?
As a judge,
Go ahead, Linda, you go ahead.
Yes, she's ready to go.
we are a nation of laws, and those laws are given to us either by our Constitution or our legislature. And as judges, we must apply those. There are times where discretion is permitted. So legislate from the bench and expand those opportunities for discretion. And that's the first part.
You gave me a better idea of how to word it. Is it way more heavily on laws? Are we a nation of laws, or are we a nation of human beings who are perfect? I guess is a better way of saying that. So.
Go ahead, John.
No, we're gonna go clockwise all the time.
Oh, okay.
We'll go clockwise all the time, but we'll start different, so John's gonna start first next time. Otherwise, I'll.
Yeah, you, clockwise.
No,
Clockwise, clockwise.
How many attorneys does it
Okay,
take?
so that we're clear, Scott told you
I'm not good at math.
Yeah, Richard can't tell time. So,
I only can tell by the 10th of the hour, sorry.
that's an inside lawyer joke.
That's how I bill, so 10th of the hour, that's it.
So, we are a nation of laws, and most of those laws, you know, we start with the Constitution, and then we start with the laws passed pursuant to the Constitution. There is another category called common law, where that actually, it may not be in the Constitution, it may not be written down in statute, but it's a traditional precedent law, you know, over many years, it's been established in court, and certain precedent, and that's what we follow. When you're talking specifically about when a judge has discretion, because we don't have a whole lot of discretion, we deal in facts, and we get the facts, and then we apply the law, and that's what the case is. But where judges tend to have a little bit of discretion, and I say a little bit, there's not a whole lot. In other places, there's a lot of discretion. Those when it comes to sentencing. You know, we get, on a felony case, we get a pre-sentence investigation. It'll give us all the details. It'll give us the person's prior history. It'll tell us where they fall in the Kansas sentencing guidelines. Then we'll look at that and say, okay, we have some sentencing choices here. We can go with the regular sentence, we can go with the aggravated sentence, or we can go with the mitigated sentence. And sometimes, you know, we have a little bit of discretion there, and that's where it plays into the circumstances of the individual. The circumstances of the individual may dictate that, you know what, this is really a really bad case, and this is a really bad set of circumstances. That may be an aggravated sentence. It may be, you know, hey, you know what, this is a bad crime, but, you know, the person's intent, you know, it really wasn't all that bad. They still did something very bad. It's like, we're going to mitigate it. Those are the circumstances that are dictated by each individual case. Having been in the front of the room and having done that from a judge's perspective, every case is different. I mean, every attorney will tell you there are no two sets of facts that absolutely match. And so we look at those circumstances when it comes to sentencing and say, this is, you know, this may be an aggravated, and most of the time, to be honest, we're going to choose the middle sentence, the standard sentence, because that's what's appropriate. And then also when we make, if we put somebody on probation, people tend to make, you know, decisions regarding what they'll have to do on probation. If they have a drug problem, they need to go to drug treatment. If they have a mental health problem, we will, you know, we may order counseling so that that individual can hopefully get to a place where they're better and they're not back in the system.
Okay, so it's me. Kind of answer your question is, there are certain arenas that the judge will probably dive more into an individual situation. Family law would be one of them. If there is a contested divorce, we're looking at kids, who should have the kids, who should be the primary custodial parent, things of that nature. You know, the judge's standard is going to be what's in the best interest of the child. So then, that's when that judge has that they can just kind of dig down deeper. You can drill down. Also, in SINK cases, you're going to have that. Everybody else has been talking about the criminal, but there are a lot of different arenas that a judge does have some discretion. Yes, judges are bound to uphold the law, and the law is the law, but there's a lot of times that those facts, especially in the areas that I've discussed, you need to get those facts. You need to, it's just not looking at, okay, here's what the sentencing grid says, this is what we're going to do. It's, I need to know these people. So I hope that answers your question.
Finally, Scott.
I guess as the last guy, so I might have to echo, I guess, a little bit what John said, but also a little bit what Richard said, in that John pointed out there's really not much discretion in a lot of different areas of the law. One of the biggest areas of discretion that you do have, obviously, is going to be in sentences. But even in that situation, you don't have a lot of discretion. 95% of the cases, plea. Doesn't matter what type of case it is, if it's a criminal case, if it's a civil case, it just ends up in pleas. I mean, Linda's stats bear that out completely. The difference is going to be when you have judges who do have the ability to have a little bit of discretion, as Richard pointed out, in family law distinct cases. In those cases, I think you have to take into the background of the parties. But I think something my side, I actually brought out the sentencing grid. As a criminal defense attorney, I'm very familiar with the sentencing grid. And even this thing is kind of recommended. It's not, you have to follow it, but I mean, it talks about high number, mid number, low number, and even in those instances, a lot of times, plea offers kind of worked out when it comes to criminal cases. There are very few times that you're completely bound. I mean, there's dispositional departures, meaning if you're supposed to go to prison, the judge can put you on probation. If you're supposed to be on probation, the judge can put you into prison. There's the racial departures. So judges aren't bound by the plea agreements. And I think that coming from the defense side, obviously it's going to be, you might have a little bit more insight as to taking into consideration people's backgrounds, just simply because I deal with those people on a daily basis. I know that there are two sides to every story. I think that's important for every judge to understand, that you've got the law, but ultimately the decision that you have to make is going to need to be fair. Sometimes fair is putting the guy who killed someone in prison for the rest of their life, and sometimes fair is putting that guy who's used methamphetamine 5 times into prison for the rest of their life. And sometimes fair is awarding the child to the mother when the father's not been an appropriate individual. There's lots of different times where judges are going to have discretion, but I think that in all those times, taking into consideration all the facts and being a fair judge is what a judge is supposed to do.
That does answer the question. That just shows my own ignorance as to how much leeway you have as a judge. I didn't know how much wiggle room you have in there.
Thank you for the question, Mark. Alan, you have the next one.
This is for position 17. I listened to the ads, and the candidate who's not here claims that he's got more experience than all the rest of you put together. And I would like to know how you answer that, and two, whether just having more years of experience is really that important in determining who should be able to judge.
Okay, so we're going to start with John.
No, he said 17 only.
Oh, 7.
I can answer that.
No, answer that.
I can answer that question.
Go ahead.
John, you're 17.
I'm
77.
7. Oh, I'm 7.
But I'll
Scott. Yeah, okay.
But I can be short.
Well, he's specifying 17. Let's save the 2 minutes. Let's go ahead and start with Scott.
All right. So obviously Dave Loudon is running on his experience. 26 years as a prosecutor. I've heard it too. But I think you've got to really dig into what that experience entails, because experience isn't the same for everybody. So if you look at Dave's history, Dave has been in the post-conviction unit for quite some time. I think Dave, if you look at the Wichita Eagle Voter Guide, has handled, 150 cases in the appeals court since the early 2000s. If you compare that, in the last 5 years alone, I've handled 1,000 cases myself, both as a prosecutor and defense attorney. Out of those 150 cases that Dave has handled, he might have been up at the Court of Appeals talking to them, but none of that involves trial skills. The Court of Appeals, they don't care whether you know how to make a proper objection or any of that. It's not, has nothing to do with the trial. So the fact that I've handled 1,000 cases, I've handled 50 bench trials, and at least a dozen jury trials. I think that, to answer your question, Alan, not every bit of experience is the same. And he can claim 26 years, but it's not, quantity over quality is not always the best bet, and I think quality in this case is going to be much more important. And I would argue I have the best quality out of everyone.
Thank you for the question. I can only agree with Scott that it matters what kind of experience. And I'm sorry that David Loudon isn't here to answer the question as well. I think what's really important to look at is the kinds of cases that we have in the district court. My experience has been, let me go first with my education. I graduated both with a bachelor's and a master's degree. I have finished law school with a degree cum laude. I worked for the Oklahoma Supreme Court Justice. I have gone to take tax courses after law school, and then I taught law school. And then I began 29 years of practice here in Wichita in the kinds of cases that are before the court every single day for those 70,000 people. I have argued at the state, district, as well as the appellate court, and I have argued through every level of the federal court, including the U.S. Supreme Court. So the kind of experience that we have when you're approaching the client needs to be sitting down across the table, talking to people about their problems, sorting out what is legal, a legal issue, and how the law might apply, and figuring out what's a social or personal problem that the law does not apply to. Because everyone who comes to court does not have a problem that can be solved by the law. It takes years of sitting across the table from the kinds of individuals that are in the court every day to begin to understand that, and also learn enough about the breadth of the laws that apply to our citizens to be able to understand what you're looking at when you sit in that court.
Oh, okay, you don't get to go. I guess it comes down to this. You want somebody that is sat behind your desk and pushed paper for the past decade, or do you want somebody that goes to court almost on a daily basis, has experience, appeared in front of all those judges, also appeared in many different county courts. I go everywhere. So I think the question at the end of the day is do you want somebody that has sat and done one thing only for 26 years, or somebody that hasn't? And if you can answer that question, I think the answer is no. So.
Thank you.
I just make a comment that because that ad is on television and also on the radio so much, you don't hear that kind of answer in the TV and the radio ads. I appreciate the answers.
Thank you, Al. Al, you have a question? Speak loud.
I can't believe how I'm asking this question being a conservative that I am. But you do everything you can working with addicts to try and get more money to the taxpayer to help these addicts get straightened out. Because I can attest when I used to have a business hiring a lot of that's going around in circles because they have no money. And yet they're supposed to go out and get counseling and treatment to help their addiction. And just something's not right there.
I'm not sure. Does anybody get exactly the question
The
here?
question is, will you champion try and get more money as you can? I know really you're very limited as a judge, but will you really support more money?
I think this goes beyond your position as judge. The question, would you support getting more money, government money, to fight addictions? All addictions, Al? All drug addictions?
Primarily, yes. Discriminating.
You feel,
Yeah, there's a,
well, John, you get to go. You're
Yeah, you get to go first.
You go first this time, so go for it.
when I practiced in Winfield, I was actually on the mental health board. I served as president until I had to leave in 2010. And one of our components was drug treatment. And having defended a lot of people over the years, there's a lot of criminal defendants that have mental health and drug problems, and sometimes they're tied together. There are a lot of people who self-medicate. They're saying, well, I don't like the way the prescription drugs make me feel, so I'm going to use meth. Like, this will make me feel great. Well, yeah, but it also gets you in lots of trouble. And so, we have a lot of people that grew up in this community. We have a lot of veterans. We have a lot of people that deal with those types of issues. We have a drug court that actually helps walk people through and rewards them for
doing the right thing, and then it will give them, a smaller punishment, and incrementally larger punishment if they continue to do bad. And it's getting them in more often to look at those types of issues. So I think we have a problem across the board that needs to be dealt with. I was at a function recently where Mark Bennett spoke, and Mark's like, okay, let's look at what it costs to actually treat somebody versus what it costs to incarcerate them. So treatment, some of the higher end programs, you're looking maybe $7,000 to $10,000. To incarcerate that same person for a year, you're looking at $35,000 to $45,000. When you look at the math, do you want the person in prison, or do you want the person to get clean and stay out of trouble? And so there's a fine line in that too, and that you have to, we don't have a whole lot of determination. Once the DA files a case and it's in front of us and we have to deal with the issues, then we'll look at those things in sentencing. Is do they need drug treatment? Do they need to go somewhere else? One of the things we are allowed to do when they're talking about the legislature spending any sort of money, one of the things we are allowed to do is it affects the legal system. We are allowed to go and testify. And if that issue comes up and that discussion needs to be had, that may be a circumstance where one of us can go up and advocate and say, here's where the problems are. We're spending, I'm a taxpayer too. I don't like spending $35,000 to $45,000 to put somebody in prison, but I might be able to solve the problem for 7 to 10 6 of that money. Because we're putting people in prison and we're warehousing human beings for a lot of drug issues that maybe we can afford. And that's going to save taxpayer dollars. So you kind of look at it like we're going to spend the money one way or another. Let's see if we can spend less of it to make these people clean and sober and hopefully keep them out of the system.
I hate going to the second after that answer. That's a tough act to follow. As a criminal defense attorney, as part of my practice, we see that most of the offenders, a lot of the underlying issue is some type of substance abuse issue. So there is Senate Bill 123 that helps some first-time, second-time offenders, as long as it's not too serious, go through treatment and do that kind of thing. The thing about it is that, unfortunately, even given some resources, some people don't want to help themselves, and that is the sad part. That's reality, unfortunately. And then so it wraps it up. But the nice thing is with drug court, with some of the Senate bill sentencings, hopefully we can catch those people before they're the fourth, fifth, sixth time. And like John said, it's something that affects, when it comes down to money in the legislature, a judge can't go up there and testify. I've seen it firsthand. I see it at least once a week with a client, so I get it.
Scott?
Okay, well, so obviously, Al, this is kind of my area of expertise a little bit because I do deal a lot with criminal defense or criminal defendants. So I can tell you that here in Sedgwick County, we do have 3 separate programs that we utilize on a pretty regular basis, dealing with addicts and trying to get them to a point where we can rehabilitate them. We have, as has already been mentioned, the drug court program. I guess the sad reality, though, for the drug court program is it's pretty strict in order to even qualify for the drug court program. You're kind of put lumped into a group, for example, with a lot of individuals who share a lot of the exact same background that you do. So, for example, if you have any domestic violence issues, you don't get to go do drug court simply because they've had a lot of domestic relationships start in drug court. So they don't want that to lead to something else down the road and more crimes. We also have what's called the initial assessment docket. It's the IAD docket. The IAD docket comes in. The Public Defender's Office handles it quite regularly. What it does is it looks at these types of crimes, some of your low-level things like severe level 5 drug offenses that are going to be presumptive probation, and it works on getting them into the treatment and the probation as quick as they possibly can. So the IAD docket is something that I believe is going to survive through our transition. And then as was mentioned by Richard, we've got Senate Bill 123. It was passed several years ago. We've also got Senate Bill 6 when it comes to DUIs. But the whole point of those are to attempt to provide money from the Senate through Substance Abuse Center of Kansas to help individuals rehabilitate. I can tell you in the 3 years that I've been working exclusively with criminal defendants, at the end of the day, I've learned two things. One, you put a drunk guy in jail for a year, don't give him any treatment, but you're going to end up with a thirsty drunk when he gets out of jail. The second thing I've learned is you can give someone treatment, but if they don't want to actually change and use it, there's absolutely nothing that's going to make them do that. I've seen judges beat their head against the wall many times, attempting to get individuals to take advantage of the Senate Bill 123 program, to take advantage of the things that are offered to them. The probation officers here in Sedgwick County are great. They work with these defendants every day. But I've seen too many defendants come back on their second or third probation violations. They're just going to prison. And unfortunately, sometimes that's the ultimate outcome. But judges are trying. It's going to be up to the defendants to take it though.
We have time maybe for two more questions, or let me check with Brian back there. Hold on. Okay, I'm sorry. Brian, did you have a battery problem or anything?
No.
Are you still good? Good.
No,
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, we'll have Linda first, and then you can have your question.
All
I'm
right.
sorry, Linda, my fault.
One, I'm just very pleased to hear my cohort up here, the way they're talking about this. You can tell that we are alert to this, and they're passionate about it. And I really can't add a lot from the levels they're talking about, but I will tell you that I went to the Crime Commission today and had the opportunity to hear a woman who is dealing with the trafficking problem. She's out at WSU, the human trafficking problem. And it was an extraordinary and very enlightening presentation. I'm not going to discuss that right now. But what I do want to say, Al, I'm a conservative too. And the Crime Commission has a program that is going for drug treatment, especially the opioid epidemic. They're just kicking it off. And I think it's in September. They're going to have a program that's going to last a number of hours. And I think the private sector, through that Crime Commission, is trying to bring together the resources and money we need to do some work with the opioids. And this woman who was with human trafficking, it also is a privately funded program. So I am adding to the things that are said here, not contradicting them in any way, to say that there are private sector efforts to deal with the drug problem that we have right now. So I think it's important that we all pay attention to it. Thank you.
Now, Brian, go ahead.
All right. So my question is, how would you deal with situations involving DCF, and also do you feel that people within the system are abusing their authority, or perhaps or do you believe that people are using DCF to abuse other people?
Do you have something specific, or is that pretty broad to just say what, DCF has all kinds of cases? Can you be a little bit more specific?
Well, I could say situations involving, it's a fairly broad question. By intent, it was to be broad, but just maybe examples like, say, you have an agent requesting a warrant. What circumstances would you require to grant such a thing? And also, if there were, if you had an issue involving that agency prosecuting some sort of action against a family, what would you require of them before you acted against that family?
Okay. So I think I understand Brian's where he's coming from. He's looking for your rigidity toward DCF in splitting up families. Are you going to be holding that family together at every cost, or are you going to be doing whatever DCF asks? Am I doing good, Brian, or no? You're going to split every family up that DCF wants split up? Are you gonna, be requiring DCF to have proof or, obviously we've had a lot of DCF problems in the last couple of years. So with that being said, Richard, you get to go first.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, I think I got the short straw on that one. Well, I've seen cases, juvenile offender cases. I've been a guardian ad litem where I've advocated on behalf of the child. What I would do is, as a judge, as everybody else sitting at this table, if they were the judge, is one, hold everyone accountable under the law. What is the law? Are they following it? If they aren't, then make them accountable for that. It's your question is kind of broad with the search warrant and everything. There are standards that have to be met, and judges, I'm sure, get search warrants that I never see that when they're presented to them, the judge says, no, I'm not going to sign this. You need to come back with something more. So splitting up the families, hey, if I'm a judge, sometimes I would have to do that. But that kind of comes back to the first question that we were ever asked: is do you look at the facts or do you look at the law? Well, sometimes you do both. So I hope that answers your question.
I think last time I was here, we talked a little bit about this as well. But at the end of the day, obviously, as a judge, we're beholden to the Constitution, beholden to the law. So as far as the warrants and things like that go, the Fourth Amendment's going to control. I think that, my opinion, coming from the Public Defender's Office, might be slightly different than Richard Paugh's in that I've not known a judge to not approve a warrant yet, but it's possibly because I haven't seen it. But realistically speaking, I think it's important that, again, as Richard said, the first question we talked about, the idea of fairness. There's always two sides to every story. As we noted, family and sin cases are sometimes issues where you take into account a little bit more of the background of the person as opposed to the rigidity of the law. But at the end of the day, you don't elect judges to do what you hope they're going to do. You elect judges sometimes to make the tough decisions. So if that's what has to be done, as a judge, that's what I'm going to be able to do.
Linda?
You all already know that the standard has to be the best interest of the child. And that's not just for the moment, but also for their life. And when families are broken up, there's always damage done. So when you're a judge and you are supervising DCF, which you must do, you have to take into account also whether that child is in danger or not, and having reasonable expectation that child will be safe. So I think what you have to do is use wisdom and common sense to make sure that the child's best interest is protected.
Well, Richard stole my line about accountability. To kind of get to, I think, what the heart of your question is involving DCF and families getting split up, I'm going to tell you that the judge is like the last person to see that. And I'll tell you why. Because what generally happens is a social worker goes to law enforcement and says, this child's in danger. And then the police then put that child into police protective custody. And then it goes to the DA to determine whether or not the sin case is filed. And the judge doesn't see it until after the case is actually filed. That family's already been split up by the time it gets to court. So there already is a split up that's occurred before it ever sees a judge. And then the judge has a temporary hearing within 72 hours of the child being placed into protective custody, and then has to make a snap determination at that point based upon the facts they have in front of them at that particular moment, whether or not that child remains in
Questions. Next, we are going to be doing a vote here for the endorsement in both Division 7 and 17. And also, I noticed several people did not want to do a straw poll vote, And I was gonna have Lauren help me with the handing out the little cards for the vote on the endorsement. And only members, we don't have that many here, so it shouldn't be too hard. But Lauren, why don't you, is there anybody that hasn't voted in the straw poll that may want to change their vote? Okay, you didn't get, okay, so nobody's done straw poll voting yet. All right, well then, you do the straw poll, and I'll handle the other. I could get a volunteer or something. Maybe I can get Helen. Would you help me hand out the little cards? And you guys are gonna just sit loose here for a minute. It won't take that long.
Oh, that's cool.
Okay, the winner on Division 7 is Jon Von Achen. Okay, the results on 17 are 9 votes for Linda Kirby
Wait, do they have them all?
and 2 for Scott. Do I have them all? I'm assuming I have them all because we have the same number.
Did you guys get yours turned in? Yes, I picked them up.
Yeah, they're all, we got the same number. So it's kind of. Okay, so we have 9 for Linda. Congratulations. The 2 sitting in the center here will be getting a certificate. I'll get that to you. They'll be printed tomorrow, and you have to let me know how to get those certificates to you. They go very good on Facebook. So, and so congratulations. And the others, I don't think you need to. Everybody got a vote. Okay.
I got to vote for myself, so.
Very good. All right. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it very much. At this point, if you have to get going, you're welcome to leave. I have the straw poll results to do next. And then if you want to wait for that, you're sure welcome. You might as well wait for the straw poll. I'm not sure where Lauren is on that. And then what I'm going to do is jump ahead here and do some of the new and old business things. On the item M on the agenda, thank you for being here, Richard. Appreciate it.
No problem.
We had our meeting in Overland Park with the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. About 13 states were represented, and we had our guest speaker was Troy Newman, our treasurer, and it was a very good meeting. Can you believe it already? We are planning our convention for our presidential preference convention. And you look at this little group here, we got 12 people voting tonight. We have about 150 members, but nobody comes to the meetings. And you look at it and you say, well, how much difference have we made? Well, if you'd been at that meeting, you'd realize that in 2015, and it was, we were probably getting a group a little bit bigger than what we have now, but not much bigger, 35, 40 maybe. But still, it's a little ragtag group. Donald Trump is president today because of the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. And he knows that. And that's why our secretary, our national secretary, Lori Urban, is in the White House right now as we speak. She's working there now. And we're looking at 2019. That's 6 months away. And that's why we had this meeting in June. And so we're planning again, what are we going to do with our presidential preference convention? Donald Trump was being criticized as having absolutely no political experience, right? And he came to Tennessee. I went to Tennessee thinking that I was going to support Rick Santorum. Anybody remember that name? Rick Santorum from Pennsylvania? I was halfway there and I got a call from my friend in Georgia, and she said, did you hear about Rick? I said, I'm driving in the car. I said, unless it was on the radio, I'm not hearing anything. She said, Rick decided not to come because he heard Trump was coming, and his campaign told him that the optics would look bad if people ran over the top of you to get to Trump, and so he decided not to come. And I'm saying, well, if that's the way he feels about it, he's got to not only come, he has to outshine Trump, or why would I give him my vote? And Trump showed up, and he spent the entire morning with us. And in spite of all of that, we ended up voting for Ted Cruz. but it was really close. And there was two people that got on the Trump bandwagon when, well, Rick Santorum had some support, and then, there were 16 people. And we had 90-some delegates. And so, it was pretty hotly contested, but Sharon Ford, who is the president now or not president, the executive director of the National Federation of Republican Assemblies, she and I sometimes lock horns, but when it came to Trump, we both, we were on going in the same direction, backing the same man. At first, it was just two of us. Me, who came as a Rick Santorum candidate, and Sharon Ford, who she was always for Trump. So the two of us, we got enough, we came really close to beating all those Ted Cruz people. And so he got second place. And then that's the idea for the straw poll here too. We had the straw poll there. Trump won first place and second place on the straw poll. And the way he did that is they had two booths set up. And this is where the public, there was like 5,000 people. It was just like mobs of people there. But only 91 of us delegates that could do anything. So they had a separate booth. You had to pay your money. This was the straw poll there. You had to pay your money. You got a straw. It was like $5 or something. And then you could go in and vote for your second place, and then for another $5 or first place, and then your second place. But it was a separate booth. And what people were doing is they were going in there and voting for Trump, and then voting for Trump again. Yeah. And there was no way to stop that. So he won both first and second place on the popular vote. And he came out of there. Nobody could say anymore that he's done nothing political, that he hadn't even been a precinct committee man, and that was true. But the guy was honest with us. And the questions that that were being put out to him, these were a lot of Ted Cruz people. And they had been thinking for weeks on the most difficult and the most embarrassing questions that they could put up to this man. And like about his bankruptcies and everything. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, well, I was concerned about that too, but they're being utterly mean to him the way they're asking him these questions. And it turns out that this bankruptcy stuff, he had 200 companies at the time, and this just in this one case that was being asked about. He had 200 companies, and one of those companies went bankrupt. And that's what the media's talking about. Oh, the guy went bankrupt. Well, yeah, one of 200 companies went bankrupt. And he wouldn't have even had to let that one go bankrupt. What happened is a guy, probably stuck his neck out a little too far. He bought a company that was making some gadgets or something, I'm not sure what they were. And he had a plan, he was not making his payments, he wasn't able to pay the bank quick enough. Trump gets on the phone to the banker and says, look, this guy has a plan. He says, you're getting interest every day, just extend him out, cut his payments in half and, make the loan twice as long, but just work with him. He's going to be there, he's going to get it. And this banker who knew Trump, he gives Trump the cold shoulder. And so Trump said, all right, I'll take it back and I'll fix it. I'll fix that guy. He won't work with him. Trump tried everything, tried to get him to work with this guy who had bought this company. So Trump says, I'll fix you, I'll take bankruptcy, I'll take that back and you're gonna get nothing. And so that's how that bankruptcy worked, but nobody knew the rest of the story. And that's what it was with all these, many, many things. And all these Ted Cruz people were just throwing mud balls at him, and he was repelling them. I mean, here we go, and before the end of the morning, by 2 o'clock or so in the afternoon, I should say, we were so impressed, that we almost won what Ted Cruz had wrapped up so solid. So anyway, the reason for our meeting in June that I went to in Overland Park was the plan, believe it or not, 2015, add 4, you got 2019, right? Well, that's right around the corner, that's 6 months away. So we have another presidential preference convention, and we will most likely be supporting Trump. And but we didn't even discuss that. I'm just telling you, everybody there was very happy with Trump keeping his promises, with Trump, improving the economy. Did you see that his overall approval rating is at 88%? Unheard of. Excuse me. Overall approval on the economy, on job approval rating on the economy, 88%. That's unheard of. There's a lot of Democrats had to vote to get that. That's a general public. Really, you know, I mean, you gotta admit, the guy, he's unconventional as can be. I get a kick out of him. I laugh about every day, you know, the way he handles himself, but I enjoy him so much. So anyway, we had, we had the plans, put in motion, and if you want to be a delegate to this convention in 2019, it will be in Georgia. It's gonna be probably about a 4-day thing, but you know, you gotta take a vacation anyway, and if you wanna do that, let me know. I'll turn your name in as a delegate. And, you know, I'm tired of going to these things is that only, or sometimes Debbie Baker will have 2, well, one time we went with 4 delegates, Dean well, actually one time we had 5. But you know, I don't like to go as the only delegate. So, you know, if you want to do that, it's going to cost you some money. You know, hotel rooms for $200 a night and so on. But you know, it's so much fun. You just, you know, you chalk it up for your vacation cost.
I wanna go.
You want to go? Okay. So, are we done with the straw poll?
Yes. Oh, the results are up there.
Oh, here's the results.
Under your paper to keep it secret. It's under your roster.
You want to come up and announce it?
Yeah.
Okay, we got the camera going here, Brian?
Yeah, for now.
Yes. Okay. We can, as long as you get your food before 9, you're in good shape. We're okay yet on time.
No, I'm just for girl.
All right. Anybody want to do a drum roll? Okay, so winning by a landslide is Jon Von Attorney Rocker Woods, 2 votes. Scott Anderson, 2 votes. Linda Kirby, 11 votes. David Loudon, 1 vote. And Richard Paugh, 2 votes.
Okay, well, very good. So it's the same group, one back. So I.